Hello, and welcome to the Agent Growth Lab podcast, where we share tools that you can use to help grow your real estate business. Joining me today is the phenomenal Tiffany McLaurin of McLaurin Realty Group. Hello, Tiffany. How are you?
Hey, April, I am good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm really excited that you're here. Guys, one of the reasons why I wanted Tiffany to join us today really kind of stemmed from a post that she made on social media a couple of weeks ago about having her first $1 million listing. So, before we get into that, let's go back a little bit first, Tiffany. So, tell us how you got into real estate and kind of what led you or how you arrived to where you are today.
Got it. Well, for those of you who do not know, thank you, April, for introducing me. I'm Tiffany McLaurin. I'm founder and owner of the McLaurin Realty Group. We're based out of Raleigh, all of North Carolina, basically. But to go back on how I got started in real estate, I got started in real estate because, for one, I absolutely love it. I know some people, they just say that. They're like, I watch HGTV. I didn't do none of that. I didn't watch $1 Million Listings or Selling Sunset. I grew up in a small town, Selma, North Carolina. My mom was an entrepreneur, and we actually lived in a fixer-upper growing up. And that fixer-upper, her idea was, we're gonna live here, we're going to flip it, and then we're gonna move on to the next house, right? So long story short, we never moved on to the next house, but it programmed me to always be looking for the next house. So I would look in like magazines at the stores. If back in 95 or 96, if you saw a little second or third grader at the stands for the house, but it was me. And I would do that, and it just developed a natural zest for helping people find houses. I loved houses. I would like to remember what people wanted. And from there, it just kind of took off. Like college, high school, people would call me about, you want to come with my mom and me to look at this house, or you want to come with us to look at these apartments? And because you care about this stuff more than us. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm coming. And I did. I cared about it a lot more than them. And long story short, I graduated from college, UNCG, during the recession. And I just remember, like, I was working in IT because I got a good job in IT. But after getting laid off, I said, this is never gonna happen to me again. If anybody's gonna be laying anybody off, it's gonna be me laying myself off. So I thought about things that I really was passionate about, and it was real estate. So while I was while I was being laid off from my last job, I applied for real estate school. I started another job, but I came in with the plan that I'm going to do real estate. And I started marketing heavily on social media. That's how I got my start in social media, because I was working a full-time job while I was a real estate broker. And the only way for me to get out in front of people was to basically turn my personal Instagram page into a now business page. I was like, I don't care what anybody else wants to see on this page. I'm going to be living, breathing, and eating real estate. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer, but that's how I got my start. It was just a natural zest for real estate, and then being able to promote myself while I was at work.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. So that I'm glad you pointed out two things that I want to touch on a little bit. One is that you truly do love what you do. And I think that is so important because I know some people who have jumped into the industry
Yeah.
thinking that it's all glitz and glam and all of that, and they have come and gone.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot that, of course, this that goes on behind the scenes. But also, I want to point out too, you started while you were still working your full-time job. So again, you leverage social media as your way to actually reach people because you were still working your full-time job. So I just want to pinpoint that just for a second, just because I want to make sure everyone heard that. And especially for the agents out there that are currently working a full-time job. You need to get
Right.
into social media and you need to be living and breathing real estate.
Yes, and like I said, I made that decision. Like, I was already like going out every weekend with friends and posting pictures of me on vacation. Like, a lot of the personal attributes that I share, I've always shared on social media. But I just knew, I was like, if I can't go out and door knock and cold call because I was working 40 plus hours a week, then I knew I needed to be on social media. And just like you said a few moments ago, where I shocked you when I put up my first $1 million listing, right? Well, it's just, I shocked people when I announced that I was leaving my full-time job. They had no idea that I had another job because of all the value that I was bringing to my social media, all the stories it wasn't stories back then, Snapchats, because I was on Snapchat too, that I was showing where I was out in the field working. It looked like I didn't have anything else to do but real estate. So when I announced today was my last day, at IT, they're like, what? How? Like, you had another job? And I did that for almost 3 years before I came into real estate full time. So
Wow, that is dedication. And I think too, and I'm sure you didn't say this, but I know for a fact you had a goal in mind. Like, hey, I'm gonna do this for now. Eventually, this is gonna go. I'm
mm-hmm.
gonna be just strictly real estate. And like you said, you're not laying, no one's laying you off again. You're gonna lay yourself off. And I love that. I say the exact same thing. Like I love what I do.
Yeah, I absolutely do. And one thing I want to mention there, because if there's some younger agents that are listening, I was operating at a scarcity mindset, staying at the job as long as I did, right? I'm glad that I did, but I really didn't have a set monetary goal in place like I should have. I just knew I wanted to leave, but I started letting fear get in the way. Like, I was like, my benefits. And then I heard they was gonna start laying people off at my job. I was like, my severance. I've been here almost 5 years. And I had a talk with my broker at that time, and he was like, Tiffany, how much are you expecting in severance if they lay you off? And I won't say the number because it's embarrassing to say right now. And then I told him, and then I was like, and then he said, well, how much is your salary? Because he didn't know that. And when I told him, he was like, Tiffany, you made that your salary plus the severance last month. You need to leave. What's the problem? And I just remember being so stressed out and overwhelmed. And the reason why I was talking to him, because if anybody knows me, I don't cry much, but I was crying on the way to work from being so overwhelmed. And he put that bug in my ear that like kind of erased the scarcity out of my brain. Like, why are you operating on fear and scarcity when there's so much abundance like out here waiting for you in the real estate world? And I will tell you, April, since the day that I've left, I haven't missed that salary. I forgot what it was. It was so low. And I really walked out on faith, and I thank myself and God for it every day. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's definitely a blessing on the other side of it, right? So I'm so glad that you took that step. And I think that happens to a lot of us. It's we take the step and then we're like, man, I wish I had done that sooner, but it's all good, all in timing. So, and look
Right.
where you are today.
Yes. Yes.
So that is
Amen.
a beautiful thing. So talk to me about networking, because I know I mentioned and I said to you, oh my gosh, Tiffany, I think you know everybody. But talk to me about how networking and being very strategic with your networking. Like, talk about how that has helped you.
Got it. Yeah, a lot of people ask me about networking, April. And one thing that I like to lead with, so other people that are like me can be encouraged too, is I'm naturally an introvert. I'm never the loudest person in the room. I'm never just out like, here's this is what I do, this is what I do. I like to attract. Okay. I like to attract. So one thing for certain is when I first got on social media, there wasn't a whole bunch of real estate brokers on social media when I started back in 2015. Ooh, it seemed like a long time ago. But it was hardly any. And the only people I saw that were doing things that I wanted to do that looked like me was in Atlanta. And so I would be like messaging a couple of the agents in Atlanta. I even met with some local people like Angie Cole, like we met up at Starbucks. I would like be DMing them. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I want to do this. I have dreams of doing this. And I think because of what I was sharing on social media, they could see that I was putting my all into it. So one of my biggest sphere of networking has come from Atlanta and me DMing people. I'll tell you a story. It was an agent. Her name is Angel Knight. And she's chilling now. I think she done sold so many houses she can relax. But she used to run this group called Agents Who Brunch. And they every Christmas, like right after Christmas Eve, they would meet up. It would be top producers in Atlanta. They would get together, they would pop Cristal and eat brunch. And I just saw pictures and I said, I DM'd her literally, I think it was 2 days before Christmas. And I said, hey, Angel, can I come to this? And she didn't know me from anybody. And she was just like, yeah, sure, come. And I'm gonna comp your ticket. Like, and it was just out of me reaching out to her. And so I reached out to her. I mean, I told my mama, like, I'm going to Atlanta the day after Christmas. And me and one of my friends, we drove to Atlanta. And when I tell you, when I sat down in that room and saw all these women that were, they looked like me, they owned their own brokerage. As a matter of fact, Angel pulled up in my dream car at that time. Like, I ended up getting it eventually, but she pulled up in my dream car and I was like, oh my gosh. When I get back to Raleigh, I'm taking over the real estate streets. So anyway, that was one of my first networking opportunities. I met other agents within there who have referred me deals and I could bounce ideas off of. And from that year forward, I was going to Atlanta like every year. So that grew me a big spear in Atlanta. And most people that are relocating from Atlanta, they're going to Charlotte. So I'm getting referrals in Charlotte just from that one DM that connected me to all of these people in Atlanta. And it just grew from there. And as far as the conferences that I pick, I love to learn. So I will reach out to, my friends in the industry that are doing way better than me. I know people look up like, oh, you're killing it. I am, but I'm always hungry for more. So I reach out to like a Tina Call or Angie Cole, and I'm asking like, what conferences are y'all going to? Who is your real estate coach? And because I'm out doing the work and they see me closing all these houses, they share. People that are doing well, other top producers, they see you working, they will share. I'm the same way. People reach out to me, I will share. But so they'll tell me like who's their coach, the conferences they're going to. And as soon as I hear, I'm like, oh, like I'm signing up, I'm going to that conference because if she's there and she's selling 500 houses a year and I'm selling 100, then I need to be where the people that are selling 500 to 600 houses a year are going to be. And so when I go there, once again, I'm not the loudest in the room, but when I go, I strategically, I'm like, who's hosting the conference? Like, who's hosting the conference? Who are the other top producers that are like the people that are coming from my region, like that are going to be there because they'll release like the names. And we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn. I don't go in there and be like, hey, I'm gonna be at the conference. I hope I see you. No, I'm going to their pages to recognize faces. So when I get in the room, I kind of got like a hit list. It's like I need to meet him, her, and her. And maybe it's just 5 people, maybe it's just 10 people, but I don't have to meet the room. I want to meet the people that are producing at a higher level or the people that are doing great things in their community that I can connect with. So I go in with strategy that way just to make those connections. Yeah. And another thing too that I didn't point out is when I got my first commission check, which was my dad was my first sale. So we finally did move. My family did out of the fixer upper guys. But I took a part of it and bought a laptop, and I took the other part and I went to a real estate conference by myself in Hilton Head, South Carolina. It was the NAR regional, no, the NAR state like real estate conference. And I went there by myself. And once again, I didn't know anybody. I didn't really go with much strategy. I went to learn. I wanted to go into some classes, and organically I would meet people because I was by myself. They were like, oh, who you here with? Because they're there with their brokerage friends and their broker. I'm like, nobody. It's just me. They're like, your broker's not here? I'm like, no. Who told you to come? Nobody. And that's another thing that I think a lot of top producers, as I'm looking around, seeing people that's coming up, it's one thing to ask questions and, like I said, DM people, but a lot of it has got to come from you. Like me wanting to go to the conference, nobody told me to go. I was just thirsty for knowledge and I looked up to see what I could go to. But anyway, I could talk all night. So, but yeah, that's how I do networking. I choose things based off other top producer friends, things that'll come in my email that it looks like it's going to be, of value to me. I'll do that. Like even with Luxury Connect, when I went like 2 years ago, I was making it intentional that I want to start selling more luxury houses. So I went there, and then less than a year later, I was hit with clients that wanted to buy $2 million houses and etc. So I position myself based off my goals. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's all about strategy, guys. You got to
yeah.
have a plan. And as Tiffany said, when she goes in that room, if there's 500 people in there, she doesn't need to know all 500 people in the room. You just need to find the right people for you. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. So really quickly, I want you to tell us about your listing and how all of this came about.
Okay, well, I'm not going to tell a story without bringing up social media. Um, I was doing during the pandemic, I was doing some champagne chats, like talking just like you and I are talking. And I would just grab champagne with one of my good friends who's like champagne like enthusiast. And her network would come to my lives, and of course my network would go to hers, just from us doing our lives. And from that live came a mutual friend who happened to be my new $1 million listing. And I wouldn't say that she was always a friend. She started off where she would join on our champagne chats, and Max was like, you need to meet, so and so, you need to meet her because she is super fly and she's in your area. And I was like, oh yeah, I do need to meet her. And so long story short, we ended up she's from Charleston, my seller that I just sold for. She's from Charleston, and I go to Charleston Food and Wine every year. Once again, networking. So although Max said we needed to meet each other, we never, how people are like, you need to meet somebody, you don't. So what happened was we went to Charleston Food and Wine, and she saw that I was there from my stories on social media. And she was from Charleston. So she was like, you should come to this brunch that my friend is hosting. I went to the brunch. We really hit it off. Max was right. We should have met. And from there, we became like really good associates. And I never saw her again until we had like a lunch at Angusborn. And then one other encounter, she invited me to her house for a small Christmas gathering. And then within 3 months, she said, hey, I need to list my house. I'm relocating to Virginia. I did not know you know, how she stayed in. I didn't know it was $1 million plus listing, but it just came from social media. It came from me. Charleston Food and Wine, I've met more than one client there. It came from me positioning myself at the wine festival. And this is me doing things I actually like to do, right? Doing things I actually like to do. And then also from me being intentional on social media, having lives that are going to get me in front of as many people as possible. So my first $1 million listing was a combination of a lot of things, but one, social media, two, networking, and three, just being a good person and meeting people that have common interests as me, to connect with, that trust me to list their house. So
Yeah.
that's how that happened. Yep.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love to hear the stories behind transactions just because who would have thought, right? Just
Yeah.
from your social media live that
Right.
you would now be on a podcast telling the world or even posting about having,
Yeah.
your first $1 million listing just from, hey, we're going to get on here and do champagne chats and drink a
Mhm.
little bit and talk, all things real estate. And like you said, you're out doing things that you actually enjoy. And I think that's so important because you are authentically you and you
Yeah.
can be, so I think there was a loan officer a couple years back, which he still does this to this day. I
Yeah.
remember he joined the company I'm with, and I was like, okay, what is it you like to do? Like, what are you into? And he's like, I'm into sneakers. And I was like, well, then you need to do unboxing of like, you need to do
Right.
an
It's
unboxing
me.
of the shoes, when you get them. So, and he's been doing that and he gets views and people are looking and he's like, yeah, today we're unboxing, whatever. So, I mean, he might not, be at a wine festival, but
Right.
somebody's in the shoes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's all about, like you said, just being you and being out
Mhm.
there and just doing things that you actually enjoy. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that story of how everything came together for you.
Right. And another thing I want to point out about that being me is even like my $2 million plus deal was, people would be like, oh, like, don't show your card. Like, people don't like to see brokers in that card. I connected with my $2 million plus a buyer because we had the same car. Like we had the same car and we built some rapport there. And it was like, oh, I want you to help me build my custom home. And the same thing with wine. People would tell me, why are you doing wine down Wednesday? You shouldn't be holding alcohol in your hand as a real estate broker. And I'm like, it is this 2020, it's 2019, whatever year it is. I'm about to be holding this wine. Like, and I meet so many people from that. So, like you said, people really need to just be themselves unless you're a bad person. Hide that, like we don't need to see
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I'm just playing.
Exactly. Let that
Yeah.
go. Yeah, but oh my gosh, I can't believe they were telling you not to be on live with wine. I mean, there's happy hours and everybody's got
Yeah.
their phones and cameras all over the place now. So why not?
It was that, when I got started before people were doing stuff like that. So I was
Mhm.
doing I was like thinking of events. Like even now, people are like, well, what type of seminar can I do? And I'm like, well, what type of person are you? Right. Like I eventually got tired of sitting down in the classrooms. I'm good at educating buyers and sellers. But I was like, everybody keep wanting to meet me for wine. Let's come together and talk about houses and sip some wine. So I did a wine down Wednesday home buying edition, and I got buyers from that. Like there's so many ways to tap into who you are. And that's the thing I love about this business. And you could do it your way, like attracting clients. So
Yeah, absolutely. So,
mhm.
Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us and tell people how they can reach you.
You can follow me on Instagram at Tiffany.McLaurin. I'm also on Facebook at Tiffany McLaurin. Honestly, if you just Google Tiffany McLaurin, my website, Instagram, Facebook, everything comes up because I'm purposefully making sure I'm easy to find so I could sell people houses. So
Right.
that's how you can find me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thanks again to our listening audience for joining us for this episode of the Agent Growth Lab podcast. For more information about the podcast, of course, we're on all streaming platforms. You can go to agentgrowthlabpodcast.com. You can, of course, purchase my book, The Growth Playbook. It's right there behind you. If you're a real estate agent, it's helpful for you to build your daily success plan. And again, thank you, Tiffany, for joining us. And we'll see you for next week's episode.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye, guys.